brothers decide to change the game. This year, see the podcast that everyone's calling amazing, Blacker Than Black.
To the artist for artists.
To artist for artists.
This is the Artist for Artists podcast.
All right, y'all. Well, we're back. Welcome to Artist for Artists, a platform where we as artists offer an immersive experience through real-life storytelling and our views on the music and media industry. Got my boy Corey to my left. Got my boy Jay over there. And we have a very, very, very special guest today.
My.
Melonie Daniels. She has an extensive wealth of music knowledge as chief background vocalist, vocal director, and vocal arranger for Mariah Carey for 12 years. She's also had the amazing opportunity to tour all over the world and to make appearances on shows like Oprah Winfrey, the World Music Awards, Grammy Awards, and the American Music Awards. Thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
I'm good. I didn't know I did all that stuff. Thank you.
We're absolutely honored to have you here.
Wow, privileged to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for coming. Absolutely. Well, I mean, I have a question right out the gate.
Sure.
I mean, I kind of touched it on the beginning. As I said in the intro, you have a massive wealth of knowledge and experience. And we've kind of briefly talked on it in previous episodes. We're all within the media industry, music industry.
Right.
And as I'm sure you know, we all go through some tough situations and times within your careers that can either make or break you.
Right.
Right? And how you come outside of that is going to really depend on how you move forward with your career. So my question for you is, what would you say was a moment that you went through in your career that helped shape who you are today?
Probably very early on, because I'm a church baby. I think the only time I wasn't in church was conception.
I mean, me
Conception and
too.
birth.
But go ahead.
Conception and birth, because they had to happen in a bedroom and in a hospital. So yeah, I think coming out of the church culture, I'm using air quotes as I say that, as it can be very judgmental and very ritualistic and very tradition grounded. And when something balks against the tradition, it is demonized, it is vilified, it is
secular.
Not even secular. If we really delve into the study of the Word of God, everything is secular outside of God.
Like everything.
Everything is secular. Even the way we walk in, there's a protocol and a setup, the way that we have to operate inside of the temple. And if you ain't right, we can be like Uzzah, going thinking we're gonna help God hold up the cart, hold up the the holy of holies, and like, oh, I'm gonna help God, and he got struck down dead because he didn't proceed properly. So there is a protocol to it, and unfortunately, some people get the protocol and tradition and their own version of what sin and sacredness is, and those that are gifted, talented. Because our gifts are not for the church. They're for the world.
Can we say that one more time?
Can
we say that one more time?
The gifts are for the world, not just for the church. Every good and perfect gift comes from God, absolutely. Right. Yep. But it's for Him to be glorified and for His kingdom to come, His will to be done, not ours. Okay. Yeah. So, coming out of that and being, like I said, a church baby, been involved with ministry since I was 3. I've been doing it a while, and just going through the ridicule of, oh, you're not anointed. I'm like, who made you gatekeeper? God, I have a relationship with God. We talk on a regular. We good.
I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
I have a little talk with Jesus, and I tell him all about it.
all of it. He hears my faintest cry.
I mean, and he answers them.
Bye and bye. Okay, so. Everything's a song. Everything. So just going through that and having to develop a tougher skin, not to be swayed and or coerced and or manipulated into things that I didn't want to do, and manipulated out of things that I know I should have been doing. There's that control thing, that manipulation. You know, the Bible, the King James says that manipulation is likened unto witchcraft. So we got a lot of witches working in the church. So you know what I'm saying. The views expressed by Melonie Daniels are her own. So yeah.
Well, I definitely have a question. and this is like a personal one for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember when I met you, and I was singing with Derek Wright.
Master, can you use?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was listening to that earlier.
Wow, really? You know what's crazy? I went down south for Christmas, and my mom and dad, in their house, they have my room set up, and everything in there is like all the stuff I've done since I was a kid. Yeah.
That is so cool.
So he has like Derek Wright and Driven's like poster up there with the album still. And
That's
everything.
wild.
So I did see that too. But I remember when I met you in the studio for that particular album. But I had seen you before. This was when Damian Sneed had a concert. And it was snowing that day, kind of bad.
Oh gosh,
And
that
it
was
at
at
a school or something,
that was at
if I
Columbia University.
I remember it being.
Yeah, it was a recording. Yeah.
That was my first time ever getting a chance to see you live. YouTubed you all day, but that was my first time ever seeing you live, and I was already just in love with just the gift and the talent and then the anointing, and just from being in the studio with you and then getting a chance to know you personally.
Right.
Like just my heart. Like you really do have my heart.
Aww.
Thank you again for being here. I love
My
you.
chocolate Easter bunny.
But I do want to ask you this now. In the earlier like 90s, right? Let's go there.
Oh,
Like,
the 90s.
let's
Very,
go
very
there.
good to me.
Let's go there.
Yes,
and the only
yes.
reason why I ask is because I wish I was a little older in the 90s. Only because I feel like that's my era. Like if I was
I have to
my
admit to
age in the 90s, I swear there would be no Bobby Brown. I will be Bobby Brown. And I'll be the king.
Oh,
Okay?
trust me. I ran across him at a few events because I used to not only.
I already like that would have been all of that would have been me. It's
The
just-
high top Gumby and the whole
Oh, that's hilarious.
all that way, but I say all of that to say, like, I just feel personally like the 90s was like a good.
It was an amazing era.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that. Like, what was the hustle like for you in that time? Because even in the 90s, like, I'm pretty sure it's different from the hustle that it is for me. Like, just trying to come out here and, well, maybe not different, but maybe just the energy and the essence behind it is different, like how it was in the 90s and it is.
The 90s, let's see. First of all, let's talk about who was president.
Okay, yeah, let's
That
go
was
there.
Clinton.
Let's go there.
So that Democratic administration was good for arts and entertainment and sports.
Yeah.
We were working, like my very first gig in the 90s, my very first professional gig was with a choir. I used to sing with a group called Daryl Douglas and the Workshop Company. And our very first gig was being the choir for George Michael's tour when he was at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
Baby,
Yeah.
that was the first time I ever met a black British man with an accent. I was like,
Hello.
whatever you
This
like.
is pre-Idris.
Right. Pre-Idris. Right. So, being exposed to all of that, just being exposed to different cultures and seeing how there are so many similarities between the different cultures, especially black culture. Globally, we all when we see each other, like, hey, family, you know. So, and yes, contrary to popular opinion, I'm light skinned on purpose. I don't do sun. Okay.
Just wanted to throw that out there, like in case.
just in case you was a little confused. The 90s were, creatively, it was amazing. Just being around the talent and the gifts that people possessed. Songwriters and singers and producers and instruments and dance and acting and sports even. Because that's all
the same.
the same thing. So just being around creatives, like we were in when we did the Christmas album, we started the first album I did with her was MTV Unplugged.
Okay.
That came out in '92.
And we're talking about.
Mariah Carey.
Okay, I just want to make
Sorry.
sure.
You did say
And
that.
let me say this right now. We're gonna
I'm
get to
sorry.
that. We're gonna get to that. But go ahead.
But
Just wanna make sure.
that was the first gig with her. Well, actually, the second gig, because the first one we did was the Grammys, when she sang her song "If It's Over," and I was in the choir. I actually helped put that choir together for that event. So they were pulling on my black book, Rolodex, contacts, if you will, from the beginning, and got the choir. Had like 40 people. We sang at the Grammys, and in the rehearsals for that performance, she heard Kelly Price, her sister Cherie Price, and myself sing.
Let's go.
And we were joking, like, you know how we joke around and be off and be stupid. So she was like, okay, could you ask them to sing a real song? Because if they sound that good joking around and being silly. I want to hear what they sound like. So they asked us to sing something, and we did. And
I wish I was in the room. I'm so
Right?
sorry, Mel.
Wish
You
I was in
said
the room
because
where it
let's talk
happened.
about the names that was just mentioned.
For real.
I did hear Kelly Price. So I was just like,
First of all, Melonie
drop.
Daniels, Kelly. Let me
Right,
tell you
like-
something. These are just not names that you just like. You don't really get a chance to even hear them like that. Could you imagine being in a room like
I mean,
that?
we came up singing together in the same groups.
Yes.
In Queens, Far Rockaway, Long Island. We all,
Yeah.
we always seeing each other at different events and stuff. So we came up singing together, and that's how we got found together. And then got into the studio, ran into a producer that I went to high school with that was working with Mariah at the time, and I was like, wait, Corey?
Wow.
Not you.
Speaking.
And Mariah was like, you know each other? I was like, we went to high school together. So reconnecting with people that we had like history with, which was so crazy. And then being around that creative process, there were so many things. Like Mariah released a rarities record where it's the songs that were never released on albums, along with a DVD of her concert that we did in Tokyo. And I'm on like 2/3 of those songs. They were just songs that the record company didn't approve for the final projects. Being a part of that, being a part of the vocal arranging for that. Then when she wasn't doing stuff, we would be doing remixes, and people would ask her, like, well, would your singers be available? She's like, yeah, sure. That's how we got on other people's projects. Because she was like, yeah, go ahead.
Wow.
And the thing is that the only legal paperwork I ever signed with Mariah was an NDA.
and that speaks
Non-disclosure
wonders, right?
agreement.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
only thing I ever signed with her. She figured out pretty early on that I'm a loyal person. And anybody that would ask me is like, yo, can you come do this? Like, how long? Because you know I'm going back when the boss called. So that's why I have, and it's longer than 2012. I started singing with her in 92. I sang with her until 2010 because I sang on like little pieces on different records.
Yeah.
Little song, like 2 or 3 songs on each record up until the second Christmas record, Merry Christmas to You. And then even now, like I watched the Christmas concert that she did at Madison Square Garden. I was like, I'm singing and I'm not there.
Now let's now I know we're here early. I know we're here very early. But since we're here, let's talk about it. With Mariah, right? Now I remember this had to be maybe 3 weeks ago or so. I literally tried to FaceTime you.
He was on a gig. He's like, yo, they're going nuts in here singing this All I Want for Christmas.
All I want for
Is You."
Christmas. All I want for Christmas, right? And let's even touch that.
Which I found that at the end of that show is 12 times platinum this year.
Yeah,
It's diamond.
It's
Yep.
diamond. Yeah.
I was like,
Incredible.
For those who don't even know what I'm about to say right now, so let's just give, and I'm gonna let you do it. Give us in a 2-minute, segue. All I Want for Christmas. All I Want for Christmas.
Oh, I'm
Let's
here
talk
for it.
about your impact in All I Want for Christmas.
They need to know, Melanie.
well,
Come
let's
on.
see. The Christmas album itself, like I said, we started recording January 4th, 1994. We've recorded from January until July. We were still doing the remixes from the Fantasy record. So we were in between Right Track Studio on 48th Street, Sony Studios, which was down on 54th and 10th Avenue, and the Hit Factory, which is in the middle of that same block, 54th Street. That was our life. We
Rotation.
were rotating through those studios, and then still flying overseas, flying to Japan, doing promotional stuff for her because her singles were still kicking. So we're doing remixes with Dave Morales and Frankie Knuckles and
Talk about it.
I mean, it
Talk
was
about
it
it.
was
Talk
crazy.
about it.
It was crazy, and I'm still living in Long Island. So me and Long Island Railroad is good friends.
Hello.
You getting that city ticket?
right.
Get that $5 and keep it going.
10 trip, that thing was
we
good.
all right.
Here, so
I'll be there.
so we were doing that, and I was still, if I was home, I was at church on Sunday mornings. I was at rehearsal on Tuesday or Thursday night. I was still doing that because I knew where my power source was. And the only reason why I was able to complete those things was because I knew where my resource is.
So
Say that.
That's the only reason. That's the only way I made it. That's the only way.
So would you say that was what kept the balance of like doing what you love?
Absolutely.
And
Because I just
still
love to
loving
sing
and
still
still loving
it.
what you do.
Yes.
Exactly.
And that to me is one of the moments that I wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. I wasn't. Because I think for me, during the pandemic, I didn't get a chance to really understand what was happening around me.
Right.
We were just still going.
Yeah. Literally.
And I think for creators and for singers or whoever, people don't really understand the job.
Yeah.
You don't get a break.
it never stops.
You do not get a break from your mind, from your emotions,
Yep.
from your heart. You do not catch a break. And even
Right.
during the pandemic, where everybody else may have been more relaxed and able to kind of catch a pace, we were recording, we were going.
It depends on what kind of
broadcasting, we were-
ministry you were part
Yeah.
of. If you were part of one of those ministries that had an impact in the community and nationally, well,
Yeah.
internationally,
Yeah.
that thing had to keep rolling.
You had to keep rolling, and I was tired.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and it was a lot that was going on for me to where I just didn't know if I even liked it.
Yeah.
Like if I
When you
liked
lose
still
that
being-
joy for it, it's like,
yeah. So would
I
you
know
say
how
that
that
was
feels.
one of like for you
Yeah.
your moments where that's what kept you?
Yeah, absolutely.
just- yeah.
I mean, unfortunately for me, I had some health issues that I had to contend with, and third Sunday in January of 2020, that's when I stopped. That's when I stopped singing. I got sick. I had to have multiple procedures, 7 hospital stays,
Wow.
literally 11 surgical procedures. And at that point, when it was that dead stop, I was like, I'm tired. I'm burned out.
Yeah.
I was
yeah.
completely burned out. I was like, I'd even said out of my mouth, I don't know if I want to sing anymore. And I had to literally rest and be repaired and be restored. That's what I needed to do. Now I'm in a place where, which my friends and James would be one of them to say it, I want to teach and show and share all the stuff that I've gotten over the years. And people are like, you've always done that anyway. So what are you talking about? There's nothing different. He's like, yeah, but I'm not standing up singing behind nobody no more. But I mean, because I would be doing that simultaneously. Now I just want to like totally focus on
And
it.
now it's the conscious decision
Yeah.
to do that.
And I'm gonna sing when it's fun. It's like a play
I
date
love
for
that.
me when I go
love
out.
That's
that.
dope.
I
It is
love that.
literally like, oh, I get to play with my friends.
I love
It's a
that.
real passion.
Yes,
a real
it really,
passion.
really is. That I happen to be pretty good at.
Yep.
I mean,
I heard this woman on Instagram. She said there are many people that have studied voice, but that doesn't mean that they're good singers. I was
Very
like,
true.
oh,
Very true. though.
shots,
Very true.
Very
shots
true.
fired. You know, because there are a lot of people that have studied voice, and I know that God has gifted me in a way that mine is different, and mine is, and it's a learned behavior, like I said to you guys earlier before we even started. The skill set of it is a learned behavior. The gift is good and perfect because it comes from God.
Absolutely.
But it depends on what you do with the gift. So I learned to become very, very skilled. So like from the time I was 3 years old, I'm listening to people break apart. So I can go right to the part that I need to be at. I'm the wild card. Like, oh, we got a soprano missing. Got it. Got a tenor missing. Got it. Got an alto missing. Got it. The leader's not here. Got it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I trained myself. It's like it's a skill set that you have to learn, that has to be practiced, and that you can't get away from it. You can't learn it by osmosis. There has to be repetition. There has to be exercise of it so that it gets into your bones.
Second nature at
Yeah.
that point. I
Yeah.
think that's very important too, what you just said about skills,
Yeah.
because if you build that skill set, it makes it a lot easier to trust
Absolutely.
yourself, right? You're able to
Absolutely.
trust yourself. The skill set is there. And as we said before, trust God, trust yourself.
Yep.
How can you possibly fail? So I like that you touched on that because it's incredibly important. If you
Yeah.
have the skills in place, who's stopping you?
Yeah, because
Right.
there's a lot of them that sing very well, but then the attitude don't match up, or the character doesn't match up, or the integrity doesn't match up. Is all of that has to be lined
Full
up.
package.
Yeah,
It's a full package.
all that has to line up.
but that, I mean, and when it does line up in that regard, that's when the true artist and the gift actually comes out, right?
Yeah.
And it just goes back to like when I met James, like it was like I met him first from the time it came out his mouth. I said, he's gonna sing at my wedding. It was like, that's my guy. I went home, told the wife, I was like, listen, wherever you had, he got to go.
That's funny.
You know, and she was just like, whatever. And I was like, I'm dead serious. But and you know, like I said, just hearing it in what you're saying, it's like we oftentimes, you know, it's servitude, right? It's giving.
Yeah, it is.
You know,
it's about
and-
being a servant. Yeah, it definitely
and when
is.
you are that servant,
Yeah.
he just keeps replenishing. He keeps replenishing.
Yeah,
he
he
keeps
does.
replenishing, and then it strengthens.
But then,
what you do.
and also in that service, you've got to be the one that sets the boundaries of being used too much
True.
or abused because of what you have.
The power of no.
Man.
Yeah,
The power of no.
and I learned that late in life, unfortunately, for myself.
But you know what though? Give yourself grace though, man, because I feel like we're learning that all the time.
Absolutely.
I feel
Yeah.
like even in life, like in moments where you just mature in certain other areas, you still have to learn as you mature in that moment how to say no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, each time the lesson comes, it gets a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
Like the first one,
the tolerance of it all gets a little,
a little bit shorter. and then also it wisens you to a fact of you see it coming.
Yeah.
It's like because I was
Right.
like, ooh, look at the red flags, they're pretty.
just looking at them though,
That's
not
it.
taking heed to
Not
it,
Driving right by it.
but
to it.
looking.
Driving
And
right by
know what they are. Just like, oh, it's a red flag, and still giving people the benefit of the doubt that they're gonna treat you like you treat them. Not always the case.
Nope.
Yeah.
Not always the case.
Thank you for listening to the
Artist for Artist
podcast, where we as artists offer an immersive experience through real-life storytelling and views on the music and media industry. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media for updates and additional content at Artist4Artist Podcast. And we'll see you next time on Artist4Artist Podcast. No cap.